In a shade under or over 7 hours, you and I are going to go back into leavening. We get to go back to eating pizza and bread and maybe eat Italian food, get back into leavening. Holding time ends. You may even have a Krispy Kreme donut. I love those things. I eat them maybe once a year. But I probably shouldn't do that. I'd probably tick you off going on about bread over and over and over. My question is, what's going to be the difference going in now, between now and Pentecost for you? Did this Holy Day season make a difference for you? And what I want to talk about is the difference in the people of God. And just one little facet that pops up during the Passover season and what Christ said about the difference. The Israelites experienced a lot of crazy things, didn't they? They experienced the water turn to blood and hail and fire and death and all of that stuff that went on, miracles before their eyes. And that didn't make a difference in them, did it? Didn't change their heart. Didn't change how they related to God. They saw the death of the firstborn, performed the first Passover, a total miracle, where there was a firstborn in every Egyptian house died. No one in the Israelites did. That didn't change them. That did not transform them. They saw the Red Sea part and Pharaoh's armies get destroyed. They saw the fire by night and cloud by day. Did that change them? No, it did not change them. Then they got to Mount Sinai. The Holy Torah, the laws of God were given out. Beautiful laws, laws of blessing, laws of good health, of protection. Did that change them? Did that change their heart? It didn't. It didn't change them. In fact, you could say it didn't make the difference. I want to turn over to what I think are, I'm going to be honest about it, some of the most depressing scriptures that you can find. Turn, if you would, to Deuteronomy 29, verse 4 through 6, to kind of set up my thoughts on this. Deuteronomy, I've marveled at this. I've read it 1,000 times. Deuteronomy 29, verse 4 through 6. God had given them his holy Torah, the laws, the things that would help them through their lives and nurture the relationship between one another and him. And he says this: the Lord has not given you a heart to perceive, or eyes to see, or ears to hear, to this very day. I have led you in the wilderness for 40 years. Your clothes have not worn out, nor have your sandals worn out on your feet. You've not eaten bread, nor have you drunk wine or similar drink, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. He says right off the bat, I give you all the things. Think about all of the things that he instructed them to do. Think about Leviticus and the building of the tabernacle and what they wear and how they sacrifice. And he says, you don't have a heart to handle this. You don't have what I call the difference today. Isaiah 58, to refer to, God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. My ways are not your ways. They're really far apart. How about you and I? So the Israelites didn't have the difference. We just spent a significant or a certain amount of time removing leavening from our house or houses or properties. And during that time, we tend to focus and look introspectively on the lives that we lead and live and where we fall short. And we, as I pointed out earlier, you don't get all the leavening out of your house. It's always prevalent. It's always there. Sin is always there. We spend a certain amount of time going through that important ritual, rite, and commandment. But that doesn't transform us either. We do a lot of soul searching. We deeply consider the life, the necessary death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ at the Passover. We can contemplate those things, take them to our hearts, and in reality, it helps us to get to where we are. But that isn't what transforms us to be the people that we need to be. Of course, I'm not minimizing any of this. These are deep, rich commandments of God that we can all learn from. They're beautiful, they're romantic, and they're timely. During the days of unleavened bread, we focus on Christ. We eat the bread. We're thinking in terms of what are his thoughts, maybe on what his will is. Reading through the Gospels again. And that still doesn't do it. So what does, brethren? I want to talk to you about the difference. What does make the difference? As we now exit this group of holy days and go into and look forward to the next group of holy days, I think this is important to contemplate. It's actually a miracle. It's an absolute miracle, the difference that transforms the people of God. It isn't what goes on around you. It isn't the things that we do. It's what goes on inside you. Turn, if you would, to John 14 and verse 16, and we'll begin there. Scriptures we read every Passover, scriptures that are timely to reflect on and meditate on, to internalize. John 14 and verse 16. Have markers for every one of my scriptures except those. So John 14 and verse 16 will begin there. And I have to concentrate and focus that I don't use the pronoun here. I will pray to the Father, and it will be given, and he will be giving you a helper. Help you with what? Help you to change. That it may abide in you forever. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees it nor knows it. But you know it, for it dwells in you and will be with you. That is the difference. That is the difference. And I'll get a little later into the purpose of the difference. But that's what brings and changes people, what goes on inside of you. I will not leave you orphans, verse 18, and I will come to you. A little while longer, and the world will see me no more, but you will see me, because I live, you also live also. At that day, you know that I am in the Father, and you in me, and I in you. You think in terms of, we tend to look backward into these scriptures and think, well, it's academic. Of course, the Spirit comes and it changes your life. But if you were sitting there listening to Jesus Christ talk, this is something that's completely out of the thought of human existence. God is going to come into people's lives, make them think different, make them act different, make them be different entirely. That is the difference. John 15, verse 23. John 14, verse 23. If anybody loves me, he will keep my word. See, there's a responsibility there. And my Father will love him, and we will come to him, and we will make our home with him. That's a miracle. I mean, we could go over those scriptures, in my view. That's a miracle. God is going to live inside people. And I know for you and I, it's academic, but it's certainly something that should be contemplated as we move out of the days of unleavened bread and look into the day of Pentecost. That God says that he's going to live in us. This must have been awfully strange to listen to this. And by the way, think of how important this was. This was really the last thing Jesus said before he was arrested. He said his work was done after he went over this concept and this idea. John 6, just keep your finger here, John 6, verse 32 through 35. John 6, 32, verse 35. Most assuredly, I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven. See, what went on with the Israelites didn't do it. And I know it's talking about manna here, but it's also talking about the concept of real change. Real change. Something that's a miracle inside of you and I that actually can make us be better people. Moses surely said, I say to you, he did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread. And of course, Jesus Christ is referring to himself from heaven. For the bread that God gives is he who comes down from heaven, and gives life to the world. That's Jesus Christ through the Holy Spirit. Turn back, if you would, to John 15, verse 26 and 27. John 15, verse 26 through 27. See, brethren, this is awfully important. It's what the world needs to know, obviously. There's a lot of struggles going on. We have a lot of struggles. And the difference, and the only difference, is going to be the Spirit of God in you. John 15, verse 26 and 27. But when the Helper comes, who I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth, who proceeds from the Father, it will testify of me. And you will bear witness, because you have been with me from the beginning. Again, the promise of the Holy Spirit is to witness Jesus Christ, to live like Jesus Christ, to think like he does, and it makes us capable to do so. John 16, verse 7. I know that we went through all this during the Passover. We went through all these scriptures, but I just wanted to point out that there is a difference, a very important difference that was available to us through the sacrifice and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. John 16, verse 7. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is to your advantage that I go away. For if I do not go away, the Helper will not come to you. But if I depart, I will send it to you. Jesus is saying that this is, again, a miracle. I'm going to die. I'm not going to leave you. I'm coming back to you in a fashion that you would never have even contemplated. And verse 13. However, when the Spirit of truth has come, it will guide you into all truth. For it will not speak on its own authority, but whatever it bears, it will speak, and it will tell you of things to come. Progressive learning, more and more learning. The Spirit of God is an essential difference in the people of God. Again, all of the things that we go through, all of the things that we do, they don't transform us. Jesus Christ and God the Father inside us do. John 10 says that the sheep hear the shepherd's voice. That's what this is. Do you hear that voice? You do. You do hear that voice. That is what changes us. Turn over, if you can, to Romans 8 and verse 13. Just a few more scriptures. Romans 8 and verse 13. Please. Romans 8 and verse 13. This is how we live, brethren. This is the only way to live. If you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if you live by the Spirit, you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. We spend a certain amount of time during the holy days, during the spring holy days, thinking about how we put out sin. He's afforded us the Spirit of God, the mind of God, the heart of God to be able to change. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, these are the sons of God. See, through the resurrection, through the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, we get named his sons. And I did a message on that about adoption and how important that is. The Spirit transforms us. It teaches us. It comforts us. It creates us as sin. The Spirit is the difference. It removes sin. As much as we try, as hard as it is, we can't remove sin. The Spirit of God does. So we have roughly 48 days to let this mind be in us. We have time to actually meditate. Tim Hendrickson gave a great message here not too long ago about taking the time to listen, in this case, listen to the voice of Jesus Christ, to listen to the Spirit of God in you, to believe that you can change and really change. Because if we just go through the motions and go through the Passover, the Holy Day seasons, and then just go back and not, or limit it, or not dwell on it, not think about it, not meditate on it, we're not going to be changed people. I want to change. I want to change. I know everybody here does want to change. And this is the only way it's going to work. The difference. Don't doubt. Have you been comforted in your heart when you probably didn't deserve it? You have. Have you learned things on your own outside of minister or church or pamphlet? You have. You have the Spirit of God. Don't doubt that it's going to work within your life. That is the difference. So tonight, we will go back to the bread outside of holy time. You and I will not be different unless we yield to the difference, the miracle, the thoughts, and the mind of God in us.